Hello YouTube, here's a video of what I learned doing my boulder wall project. I had an old retaining wall and nasty set of stairs to get down to my dock, as you can see in these pictures. The old retaining wall and stairs were in a dilapidated condition. They were dangerous. It was impossible to mow or upkeep. We just didn't enjoy our time spent down there, so something had to be done. As with most projects, it began with cleanup, organization, and planning. These are some photos to show you the condition of the stairs, the bricks, the mortar, how it's breaking down and falling apart and unsafe. This was a little doodle I had done to convince my wife that I could do this, and my initial ideas as to what I wanted to do. 2 different retaining walls with a pathway down to the cribbing system or our dock pad. This is the initial markings I was making on the side of the hill to delineate where I should dig once I rented the mini excavator. My run, parallel to the hill, was around 60 to 70 feet for a 15-foot drop. That was good because I had found in my research that you would want 3 degrees or less of a slope if you wanted grass or anything else to stick to it during rains. So my brother-in-law and I marked out 70 feet of string line, and we determined where the road would enter at the top and where it would exit at the bottom. With that step complete, we painted the lines on the grass so that we could see them during the digging process, and moved the stakes out of the way so that we could start the digging. Here's my little guy having a little fun in the Mini X before we actually put it to work. The machine to the bottom of the hill, I started by taking scoops just inside the top red line and placing that dirt just outside the bottom red line in about 5-foot increments, and then I would doze that material, run it over, pack it down, and then move on another 5 feet, and I just repeated that process until I made it all the way down. Once I reached the bottom, I could go to work ripping out what was left of the old retaining wall and removing the cinder blocks and the remainder of the stairs. Right behind me was my brother-in-law, thank you Brian, who was running the tractor, pulling dirt down and leveling the road with the box blade. We found the best way to do this with the box blade was to drag the blade down the hill, leave it in a pile, scoop it up with the bucket, and then take it back up the hill and stage it in my yard. I would also like to say thank you to Wally for letting me use this tractor. I had ordered one from John Deere, but mine wasn't in yet, and man, are they a lifesaver when doing any of this kind of work. You just absolutely need one. Once we got the path in decent condition and all of the old rubble ripped out, we leveled the base and started to set our first course of boulders. That marked the end of our time with the first Mini X rental from Sunbelt, and it was on the trailer to go back. For the bottom wall, in our non-professional opinion, we didn't think that we needed to do any tamping or vibrating to compact the surface, as our system or our crib system had been there for years and had settled. Now we just started making sure our first row of boulders would be level by leveling the gravel underneath it. We placed non-woven geotextile fabric against the dirt and laid down our first row. I wanted to take the time to point out the fact that this photo, the geotextile, is run inappropriately. The second layer of geotextile should be behind the first layer. So the bottom of the second layer should go behind the top of the first or bottom layer, and that should continue as you go up, so that as the water and dirt runs down the back of it, it doesn't get in between the layers, which would contaminate the rocks, the 3/4 gravel behind the stone. You want that 3/4 gravel to remain clear so that any water that gets in there has an easy path out for drainage. Behind the first row, then we started filling it with 3/4 inch clear gravel. You could really tell once we got all the gravel packed in and around and up to the level of the back of the boulders, that it really locked everything all together. There was no movement once that was done. I'd like to add here that the process was to run a course of boulders, backfill it with gravel, run another course of boulders using gravel to level, and then backfill, lather, rinse, repeat, adding layers of geotextile as you go up. Break time at the OK Corral. Thank you to my father-in-law, brother-in-law, and nephew. I'd like to point out a mistake we made when laying our first wall. We did not stagger our joints. We started to, and then we got excited that things were going well, and we just spaced it. Rookie mistake right there, tell you what. This is our upper wall, and as you can see, we did a lot better job. Although we weren't perfect, we did a lot better job. I'll take the time to share a couple other lessons learned while picking boulders to go to a specific spot. The thickness of your boulders is important. So if you start a row and your first big boulder is, let's say, 12 inches thick, you want to try and find 12-inch thick boulders to go all the way across that row, and so on and so forth. If your next row has big, thicker boulders like 15 or 18 inches, you want to try and find 18-inch boulders to finish out that row. In addition to thickness, you need to consider the width of the boulder so that you stagger your joints. Sometimes one boulder will be wide enough to bridge the gap and cover the joint below it. Sometimes you'll need two to make that happen. You're better off measuring exactly what you need and trying to find a boulder that fits that rather than just going and grabbing random boulders and bringing them down. We tried obviously to make the heaviest boulders on the bottom, and we accomplished that for the most part, but when you get boulders, you're going to get a mix mash, and you're going to have to figure out where you're going to put some of the less desirable stuff. Speaking of less desirable boulders, these came from a local quarry, and they were blasted and sold as is. They aren't broken, which means you can get them at a significant discount. But with that discount means that they're very random and they've got odd shapes to them. So when encountering that, we used the 3/4 clear gravel to level these boulders out. And because they are not perfect, they come at a significant discount. You can get these boulders for quite a bit less money than if you buy perfectly broken. I think they break the boulders that are perfectly square. This type of project requires 2 people minimum. One person to operate the machinery and the other person to go and pick out the boulders from the pile, hook up straps, etc. And this marks how far we got on the first weekend. We rented a Mini X on a Friday and dropped it off on a Monday for a 1-day rental and 8 hours on the Hobbs meter or hour meter. Little plug for Franklin Equipment here. Their 1-day over the weekend rental is about the same price as everyone else, and it is 16 hours of runtime, whereas everyone else only gives you 8 hours of runtime. So that's a great value. Piece of advice when renting machinery, look them over really thoroughly. The first Mini X that I rented was a John Deere from Sunbelt Rentals, and it had a tear on one of the tracks that I didn't notice when I picked it up. I rented 3 different styles of machines, all around the 6,500 pound range. First was the John Deere, second was the TB, and the third was the Wacker Neuson. The John Deere was really good other than the track malfunction. The TB was good. It didn't have as much power as the Wacker or the John Deere, which got worse as the day went on and caused me to stop being able to use it. Out of the 3 places I rented for the Whacker Newsom from Franklin Equipment, pound for pound was the best deal. It lifted pretty comparable weight, I think, to the John Deere, and it included the ability to put 16 hours on it versus 8 over the weekend. So that set it apart from the rest. Another tip is I thought I would need a thumb on these, and it did come in handy a time or two, but it was definitely not a game changer. The continuous loop strap was amazing. It allows you to strap a boulder with the one strap very quickly, and it's very versatile. Way better than doing separate straps. You can wrap one corner and the other corner and grab it from the middle and lift and go with quick and easy hookup. And strapping boulders was the only real way to get them in place and be able to shim them with more rock, etc., and put them down with precision. In my humble opinion, strapping is the only way to go when moving boulders. And it's best to have multiple straps. We had one continuous loop, I think it was 10 foot, 6,000 pound rated. I got that from Franklin Equipment for, I believe, $60. That was the only local place I could find it. And we had 2 3-foot choker, 6,000 pound straps, and a couple other straps. The more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. As far as other tools and equipment, we had one of these large pry bars, an inexpensive one from Menards. And obviously we had shovels and rakes and things of that nature. 2 weekends later, we were back at it. We finished off the first wall and started in on the second wall. And after almost a 1-month wait, I got my tractor in, so I didn't have to borrow my friend's father's anymore. It's a John Deere 2025R. The paint on the ground is delineating where the upper wall is going to be placed. The odd shape is to comply with county setback requirements. And so I began laying the first of the boulders. The 3 bottom boulders on the right you see here are absolutely massive. I think that, well, yeah, they had the TB at the time, and I couldn't even lift them. I had to drag them while lifting to get them down there. They are on top of already existing boulders that were there from the original wall, so they're not going to go anywhere. Here's my brother-in-law bringing down some 3/4 gravel to for the drainage behind the boulders and for leveling on top of the boulders. Unfortunately, on this upper wall, I didn't have the luxury of 2 to 3 feet of space behind so that I could fill with gravel back there for a massive amount of drainage. I was limited without eating into my path. So while the base layer had about 1.5 to 2 feet at spots, as the wall went vertical and tapered back, I lost some of that space for gravel and drainage. This is the top wall, nearly finished. Just needs more gravel and more geotextile fabric at the top. I happened to run out. So before I returned the machine, I dug the trench for the drainage in the path. And that was the last of my mini excavator use. The rest would be done with good old-fashioned shovels and my tractor. Here I am, filling the trench back up. I didn't need it as deep as I dug it, and leveling it out so that I can put a drainage pipe in, wrap that with geotextile fabric, and then refill that hole with gravel. And here it is after it's been seeded. It's about 80% complete, I'd say. I need to finish off the top, the very end of the upper wall. I wasn't sure what I want to do there, and I would like to add another 1.5 layers to the lower wall. These next few slides are of channels that I found very useful in my planning and research doing to do this retaining wall. Although the GeoGrid video of Stanley the Dirt Monkeys I didn't find until afterwards. Good luck, YouTubers. Thank you.